Hey Clint, it's good to see you again.
Hey, Ashley, how you doing?
Hey, pretty good. It's been a while.
Yeah,
Feels like 30 seconds.
it seems like
Yeah. Hey, so today we're talking about Colossians chapter 4, where it says, conduct yourselves with wisdom towards outsiders, making the most of the opportunity, and let your speech always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you know how you should respond to each person. And when I thought of that passage, I thought of you because I know you've done a lot of work with apologetics, and I'd just like to get your take on that passage today. But before we do, I'd like to hear about your testimony of what brought you to the faith that you have today. What was it like before you had the commitment that you have to Christ today?
well, you know, I grew up in a Christian family and had gone to church and was always a believer. But I think that especially in hindsight, when I look back, one of the things that lacked, and which unfortunately kind of cost me later on in life, was the fact that there wasn't a lot of apologetics in my church. And you went to church, you did the stand up, sit down, sing, communion, hear the sermon, go home, you're done. And I, of course, read the Bible occasionally on my own. But without, I think, some of that apologetics, I was easily, I don't know, distracted, maybe led astray later in life. And so when I got out to working in the professional world and started taking martial arts and got heavy into all of that stuff and some of the meditation, I found myself reading more and more Eastern philosophy, mysticism, Taoism, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of found myself a little taken with it, not in the sense that I was giving up God or my beliefs, but gee, how can this stuff kind of meld in? There's not a lot of superficial differences here. There's still kind of a significance in life that both of these are trying to proffer up, for people to read and understand. And I thought, yeah, I can deal with this. This all sounds reasonable to me. And so I kind of didn't even know it. I just started sliding into this, what I would say maybe a Christian Taoist, if that's possible.
Hmm.
And of course, at the time, I thought that, sure, I mean, I can believe in the Bible and also go along with Eastern mysticism, what it's teaching. So I started sliding into that. And then one day, I you handed me some tapes. I don't remember what our conversation was, but you handed me some tapes, Jesus Among Other Gods, from Ravi
Hmm.
Zacharias. And you probably didn't know it, but at the time, that was a real um, timely thing to give me because Ravi being Eastern and the subject on about Jesus among other gods was perfect. Now, that didn't
Hmm.
really click like a light switch did, but I think it got some subconscious ideas implanted into my head. So one night I was out at Barnes and Noble around this whole time period, and I saw a book on a table, Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And I just remember he wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, and I thought, well, that looks interesting. What the heck, I'll pick it up because I was into philosophy and stuff at the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
started reading it. I wasn't into that book 10 or 15 minutes, and I just remember thinking, wow, I'm such a fool. You know, I, what is wrong? I've been really off the track here, and I didn't even know it. It's almost like someone slapping you in the face.
Wow.
Yeah,
Uh,
it
so
was just like a slap across the face.
wow. So those books really made the difference, huh? That's
Yeah,
great.
they really did. And like I said, if I had, I think a more apologetics base, or even don't have to use the word apologetics, just more of history and logic and all these things and how they play into the Christian faith, I would have never have gone down these paths. In hindsight, I look back and it's like, God, it's so stupid. How even entertain some of these ideas, but
Hmm.
not having some of this knowledge and not being educated in the ways of the Bible and all that the facts and evidence that go with it really hurt me.
Hmm. So Clint, your testimony, I think, really fits with a lot of people. A lot of people in our society are confused basically because there are so many different religions presented to them, and maybe they weren't raised in church even, and they don't see the difference between one or the other. Can you tell us about a time when you've got a chance to share the gospel with somebody in a way that was like Paul was talking about here, with wisdom and grace, and how did that turn out?
Yeah, I can't say I always have wisdom and grace. I'm still here, still, still have struggles like everyone else. But fortunately, those times are rare. What I try to do, and just the other day, it's funny you said about all the choices we have before us, because I was discussing with a guy I know on Facebook, and we've been going back and forth about minor details of the Bible, philosophy, God, all this. And he said, "Well, why believe Christianity as opposed to all these other religions?" Hey, that's a really good question, and I understand the dilemma you have. It is a
Hmm.
dizzying array of things before you. So what I try to do is identify that, yeah, that is a good question. When we look at answering people's questions, we have to look at the person too, and not just give them a technical answer, but try to identify with them, because these are struggles that are very real. Now, I'm not so sure how sincere he was, but nonetheless, I gave him an answer. And part of the answer was that I used evidence, and mostly the resurrection of Jesus, why we should go with that first. I first mentioned that, hey, Christianity is free. A lot of the other religions ask a lot of you. I mean, Christianity in a sense does too, the cost of discipleship, of course, but a lot of other religions, you have to do all these rituals and ceremonies, change your clothes, forget your family. I said, hey, Christianity is free to try it on. And the evidence is overwhelming. And so I just gave him a rundown on the basic facts of the resurrection. Hey, Jesus really existed. We know that he was crucified. We know that his disciples went out and claimed that he had risen from the dead and that the tomb was empty. And these are facts that pretty much all historians agree to, even atheist historians. And
Hmm.
that kind of conversation going down that route of just these are the facts that everybody knows really opens a lot of doors, because then you're not talking about, oh, my opinion or some minute philosophical idea. These are the facts before us. Who can best explain these facts? Now, a lot of times people still want to say, well, hey, it's hallucination, but there's lots of good answers to that. But it's a simple way to address facts and, kind of cut through all the mustard.
Oh, that's great. Clint, I know I know you've read a lot of books, and Amazon is a regular at your house, coming to the door. And but unfortunately, a lot of believers haven't had that opportunity. Are there some simple things that you could offer other believers just to get started and how they talk to non-believers?
Yeah, I would say that there's a couple of really good things to do. And these are things that Jesus did. Is he always asked questions of the questioner to get that opens up where they're coming from a lot of the time. And there's two questions that everybody should have ready to use. The first one is when someone says something like, I don't believe Christianity is true, or I don't believe Jesus ever existed, or I don't believe dead people, rise from the dead. You want to say first, what do you mean by that? And what this does,
Mm,
this helps clarify what it is exactly they're saying, because sometimes people are not even sure what they mean. They're saying something they heard, or maybe they kind of agree with you and you misunderstood them. So this is something to do out of respect.
okay.
So what do you mean by that? And then when they clarify it, you say, well, how did you come to that conclusion? And now that, believe it or not, is a very, very profound question, because a lot of times, once again, people haven't thought through their ideas very well at all. And maybe they're
Mm,
spouting something off in anger. And so a lot of times when people say, well, I don't know, that's just what I heard. Because a lot of times you hear this stuff, well, the Bible is, been copied so many times, there's so many errors in it, how can we trust it now? Well, how did you come to that conclusion? I don't know. I mean, there's just so many contradictions. Oh, really? Well, what do you mean by that? Well, things just, and you can really just get them to open up, and all you're doing is listening. You don't even have to defend anything. And now they may say something that will allow you to step in with what you know and give some answers. But hey, if they're raising some serious questions you can't answer, you say, well, that's something to think about. Now you've got what they know or what they believe. You can go research and come back later if you'd like. There's no pressure on you.
yeah, that's great. I can see how that'd make a great ongoing conversation with a coworker or somebody that you spend time with.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
a great
so,
technique.
and then something else that if you really want to do something simple, for, starting off on apologetics, you don't have to read a ton. I think the most important thing to do is be able to defend the historicity of the resurrection. And Gary Habermas and some of these guys, Michael Licona, they have what they call the five facts, basically. Four minimal facts plus one, I think they call it. But these are basic facts that you can easily remember, and they have some charts in a book. I think it's called the case for the resurrection of Christ. Yeah, that's my dog. Yeah, see, he agrees. Samson, you agree? Yeah, he agrees.
Yeah.
But anyway, and they're really easy to remember. And like Paul said, if we don't have our facts firmly in the resurrection, then we're really lost. We need that. We're fools if this whole thing's a fake. So learn that, know it, and learn those five basic facts because it's really easy.
Okay. That's a great place to start. So, Clint, I know you've told me that you work with a college group. Could you tell me a little bit about that, what it is?
Yeah, Ratio Christi. It's a nationwide campus ministry. And what we try to do is partner with the other ministries on campus. We're not there to really, take over and do some of the things that your typical ministries do. What we want to do is try to work with these other campus ministries to kind of teach apologetics, get students interested in it, and just do, practical skills and teachings, anything that will relate to apologetics. We get a lot of speakers that come in. We're having Jay Warner Wallace, who's the cold case homicide detective, come back again in the fall, and
Nice.
he's amazing. His book, Cold Case Christianity, is really good. So I would highly recommend it because he was an atheist that came to Christ because of basically his detective skills. And he looks at the Gospels and notes how they act just like real eyewitnesses do. And their stories work just like real eyewitnesses do out in the world. So he's got a
Wow.
fascinating. So we get those people to come in and they talk, and then we try to engage with the public a little bit, or mostly students, and get them to come, and then afterwards have a little Q&A with them and invite them to our meetings. It's a lot of fun, and the students really like it because they get to see all the powerful evidence that is out there, and then they learn how to use it.
That's fantastic, man. Well,
Yeah,
thanks for your time talking with us today. Appreciate it.
yeah. Thanks, Ashley, buddy.